Hello everyone, welcome to our World Today, the Unis perspective, when we talk about the news in a different way. And today, obviously, we want to talk about the US presidential election results. It was a pretty short, I would say, election in the sense that from yesterday night to today, it was pretty clear in a few hours that Trump had won a lot of the states and a lot of the swing states, putting him in the lead unequivocally. And so Donald Trump has won the election. So basically, I know for some people, the emotions are very high. This is my feeling right now as we're talking about it, even though I didn't feel that way before. And I think this is just a way for us to kind of unpack, first of all, how our teammates from the US went into their healing process today, what was brought up for them, and also what are the lessons for people in general after this election, because there are a few, I think, very interesting for Republicans, for Democrats, and for everyone involved. And I'm looking forward to start diving into it. So, whoever feels ready between Sage or Nadia, to maybe talk about their experience today and share with us how it has felt. Open floor. I'll give you a few seconds to prepare. But Sage seems like she wants to talk, maybe.
Yeah, I can if it's okay. I, yeah, so basically, first, before I say anything, I want to say that it's been very healing to talk about it with, you know, friends in the community, in Twin Flames Universe community, and to see different perspectives on it because people in our community have a lot of different political perspectives. And there's nothing mandated. You can believe whatever you want. And so yeah, you get to all these different perspectives. And so many people might be interested in spirituality and healing. So anybody is welcome, you know. The only thing is, do you want to heal or do you not want to? And that depends, that will determine how deep you can go, basically, into love. And that's it. So, but anyway, so we're all trying to get clear on the truth here, and none of us will claim to have it, like the full truth. So I just wanted to say that. My reaction initially was total dread. I was so shocked when Donald Trump was looking like he was going to win. When I saw that he won Pennsylvania last night, which was around 2 a.m., I want to say my time, which would have been 4 a.m. Eastern, I was shocked. My whole body, it was visceral. And the reason for that is because of all the things that he has said, and also the Democratic campaign's big emphasis on that, but mainly the things that he said and my feelings about it because of how he's promised to, well, limit trans health care, at least for minors, at least for kids, but, you know, so it's it can affect, well, it can seem to affect me very personally, but I don't choose to let anyone determine my life for me. And we can't assume what's going to happen. And I was totally shocked. And I was like, this is rough because, you know, he suggested there might not be another election after this one. He suggested it, but he said many things. Let's turn the military against peaceful protesters. I don't want to just like laundry list all of that, because if you've listened to any liberal media, you've heard the laundry list of all the things that he said. So we don't need to repeat it. But that was really terrifying for me. But a lot of energy was flowing through because it was healing in a way, because it makes me realize we shouldn't put our trust and our faith into like politicians and stuff. Nobody else is our source. Like God is our source, or however you conceptualize that. And it's helped me have more faith in like realize how like I need to choose love, like I'm responsible for myself in my life. And I don't want to let anybody else determine how I feel, over the course of my life. So it's been healing, and that's been my feeling so far. And I do feel like I'm maybe still a little anxious about it, but overall, I feel much better now. So, how do you feel, Nadia? Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up not staying up too late, but um, looking at the numbers, I kind of figured that Trump was going to win. And I actually felt that Trump was going to win when I went to the polling place because of how, um, I don't know, not everyone was too adamant on Kamala. Like, it seemed like they were voting for her because to meet ends and not really know much about her or be enthusiastic about it, which I could, I feel the same. It wasn't as if she was going to be the saving grace for us, but she was going to be something better than Trump. And after Trump won, the first thing I was thinking about was women's reproductive rights and um, how maternal mortality has already increased due to such strains and will probably increase even more, and how potentially we would divide ourselves because we have a president who likes to encourage separation and likes to put others down, put certain people down, especially immigrants. So, my thinking is that we've been here before and we will go through it again. We are one as a nation. So, if this is an upheaval period, this is an upheaval period. Although this was not my choice, it was a choice of oneness. Like, I have to accept that I live in a nation where they made this choice. And like you said, we are powerful regardless of who the president is. We have checks and balances for a reason. Um, I think it was Roosevelt who got assassinated on his term. Correct me if I'm wrong.
He died in his fourth term. It was
Fourth term.
insane. Yeah,
Yeah.
like 2 months into his fourth term. That was insane.
Yeah. So then after that, we created a system where you can no longer serve for more than 2 terms. And I have faith in the system. I have faith that Trump will be checked and balanced. And it's really that if this is the unfolding, it must be of God's unfolding. It like is perfect for whatever that we need to go through. So I can understand that. And regardless, it is upsetting to see that where we're at right now. And we have much work to do. And that's what it's saying. We have much work to do within ourselves and within educating our nation because a lot of people voted for him because they talk like him. They see him as a representation of themselves, which is awful. And yeah, much awareness, much education that is needed in this nation. And that's about it for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have two questions. One maybe for Nadia. Um, what do you think are the things that we need to learn when you say like much there is much to learn and heal still um about your nation? And maybe one for Sage, but open to both, where I would say mm, if people elected him, which I'm not certain, but it seems like part of people elected Trump because he talked like them, or I felt like he was a good representative, no matter if he was outrageous. Sometimes any phobic thing that you could feel, they felt that it was a good representation. So there must be a reason. People are not, maybe not like very, sometimes they're not like educated in politics, but they're not idiots either. So what does that say about how people saw the Democrats in this year? So those are my two questions. So what is there to learn and heal, if there is much to learn and heal still for your nation? And then what is there to see for Democrats?
I feel that, from my perspective, spiritually speaking, the United States has a grand foundation of power, but it has gone unchecked because we, for too long, treat others as unequal. We are the United States of America, and we are this, we are that. However, because of this arrogancy, we have manifested a president that is now projecting that arrogancy. We cannot be the power that we stand on, the power that God has given us, if we treat anyone unequally. And that has gone on too long within our own nation, within Blacks, within minorities, all other immigrants, within other nations of surrounding us, including Puerto Rico, who cannot even vote. If we were to go to a draft right now, they would have to go to war, but they cannot vote for a president that would say if we were going to war or not. So things definitely need to be checked. And I'm not completely clear on your question. The second question, I didn't hear it right. But I think what you mean is like, what do Democrats have to do now? And I feel like they need to get their shit together. The electoral system is just so out of whack. And every election we talk about this, but we never change it. And then it seems like the Democrats always last minute try to shuffle some things so that they can look like a well-oiled machine. But really, the foundation is absolutely rotting. Like, you cannot be a democratic system and advocate for everyone while leading a system of welfare and lenience towards the government, and not allowing your people to stand on their own feet, and not knowing how to stand on their own feet. Like, it's a cover up for not letting minorities um, be equal.
Okay, what you just said is so fascinating because what you just said has been a Republican talking point for a long time. And a lot of Democrats have dismissed that as being racist, because there's basically their argument goes, you're just basically trying to buy the votes of minorities by offering welfare, and stuff. And it's kind of, I mean, you've got to really dig into the details of that. You can't just say that. But I feel like it is a feeling overall. And the strange thing happened in this election where it seems from preliminary polling that Donald Trump performed better with African Americans and with Hispanics than he did in 2020. And in 2020, he performed better with them than he did in 2016. So there's something going on there. And I do feel like you're correct. There's this feeling that the Democratic Party has this energy of being like, oh, I'll be like your savior, I'll help you out of a tough situation. But there's something to be said for giving people help in tough situations. Like, you want to be compassionate, But I feel like, especially in America, like in the USA, people tend to really value their independence and they're like, I built this, I did this. It's a very like individualistic country, which has its strengths and weaknesses. Like in COVID, when people said, I have my own opinions about vaccines. So that's a weakness, but it also could be a strength. And I do feel like there's this deep nostalgia for the past that Donald Trump captured. And the Democrats never answered this nostalgia. They said, make America great again. When was America great? Back when slavery existed, back when Jim Crow existed, back when gay people couldn't get married, right? And they said, when was America great? Well, I don't know if that's rhetorically successful because people are saying back in the day, you could stand on your own 2 feet, you could work at a gas station or a convenience store for a year or two, you could buy a house and provide for your family. And I feel like that also really resonated with male voters, even younger male voters. The Democrats were so confident that younger voters would go for them in big numbers. And maybe they did. I don't know if they did, but maybe less than they expected, especially young men. And because they have that feeling of like, I wish I could provide for my family better. And Trump was appealing to that, on the very least emotionally, if not logically, because I don't know how he plans on accomplishing any of that, but I feel like that's what he did. And the Democrats didn't have an answer. And that's the problem in our politics and in politics around the world, is that people feel so upset at each other and really upset at themselves that they talk past each other, right? So that if you're in the left-leaning media sphere, completely different world, completely different worldview. It's like comparing apples to oranges versus the Republican one. Seriously. Talking past each other is not good. And if you want to do that and forge those ties, though, you have to heal what's within, or at least set that aside and be willing to really have a nuanced conversation. Because if you don't, that's just what you get. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that is exactly the problem. You both worded it so well. We watched this election for the past few weeks. My brother and we discussed this very deeply. And there is a problem of like, they don't know how to communicate. They talk at people. And I think that people are going to talk at Republicans as well. But even their um, initial electorate is saying like, maybe it's time to talk differently. And I think that's why the vote didn't turn out that good. And the vote didn't turn out that good even more now for, you know, people of minorities, like Black and Hispanics, like they didn't turn out that well. I don't know if it's even more than 2020, but it didn't turn out that well. The problem is that you cannot continue to say that anyone in the electorate is a racist, fascist, and yes, they're loud. Yes, they're here. Sometimes they're transphobic, sometimes they're conservative extremists, but it's not all of them. You can say that you have maybe 100 of them on the internet. You can't say that of the 70 millions that voted. And I think that's where the Democrats got wrong. They did not know to whom to speak. They didn't know the message. And it's like, it's so, what are you for? It was so frustrating to watch because it's something as simple as, yes, we can, because we believe in this, or make America great again, because we believe in this. And whatever, if it was true or false, these people that won, they spoke to something in people, and I think Democrats didn't. And I think that's a huge problem that Nadia was like kind of highlighting with the arrogance, I think. Because I've been around political circles for college, for political science, and the left To be honest, like even if some of my ideas were group, it's like they're the worst. They're the worst intolerant people because they feel so um when they're cultured, when they already have an education of politics and culture, they are so condescending about other people, about people not knowing. They don't know how to have discussions with other people. They don't know how to be open. They don't know how to observe a population that may be different from them. And it is their downfall all over the world right now. It is why there is no strong leader that can represent it because they don't know what they represent. And on the inside, yes, Republicans, I think they fight on the inside, but Democrats, they can't agree on many things. And so it's really like, what are you for? I think, yeah. And also not being observant. I said this about like the people I was in poli-sci with, but it's basically like we knew for a year and a half that young people didn't necessarily vote more progressive. We knew that some of them were even more conservative. And I think people should have been very observant about that. Um, because a politic of like having meetups with celebrities and make speeches around them wasn't going to cut it. Um, you had to really feel the atmosphere of people who were tired of seeing the same old things, and it wasn't going to win you new electorates, and it wasn't even going to win you past electorates either. And I think maybe we wanted to play it safe, in a world where everything was unsure, but it wasn't the way to go, maybe. That's my feeling. That's how we saw it in my family. That's what we discussed at length. Um, and yeah, I think there is a big problem here, to be honest. Although, like, you're not your upset. Your country is not its upset. So I'm going to be fine, right? But it's true that there is a big problem here, in terms of at least communication between people. Yeah. Grenville, anything to say?
Gosh, you guys have said so much. So yeah, I think primary for me is definitely the sense of knowing your audience. And as much as we have been advocating over the past few weeks for share your party's politics, share what you're going to be standing for, what you're going to be delivering. Part of the challenge with that is also that yes, we're trying to appeal to a younger mass of new voters, but that younger mass of new voters does not necessarily subscribe to politics. They listen to the popular opinions of brothers, aunts, uncles, mothers, fathers, grandparents who are older than them. So you have a lot of people that have historical knowledge, which, in a company, we would call it institutional knowledge. So there's lots of people with institutional knowledge of what America has been. And when you start to appeal to those people, you already grab their hearts. It's very easy for the mind shift swing to grab that mind. And because you've grabbed the heart and the heart and the head, the hands are gonna do the thing. The hands are gonna vote for you. So there's this combination where you need to realize that these things work in tandem, but we have, as humanity, come out of an exceptionally trying 5 to 10 years. And we want stability. And we don't want lofty promises of what can be when the can be of the past hasn't necessarily been delivered on. So, just logically, they may have needed to be a little bit of a step back to say, well, what do our people really need right now? And how can we deliver? Well, first of all, how can we land the message with them? And then how can we deliver on it? So, as much as Trump sounds arrogant and is in all likelihood arrogant, he's also got a track record of success in certain things and potentially a track record of not such great success in other things. And, people are going to look at the balance and they're going to go on a scale of probabilities. If something has a 50-50 chance of being this or that, it's going to likely be 80% that way. And that's how probabilities work. And so if we've got these two candidates that could be 50% successful, we're gonna go with the person that has the greatest success track record. It's logical because as much as we believe as people that we like change and we subscribe to change, we're also very much creatures of habit. And our habit is going to often drive us into the security of the past, not the promise of the future.
Anything to comment on that, Nadia?
So, just wanted to comment overall on what you guys were saying. And I see a similar relationship between how Obama spoke and how Trump spoke. Because Obama, he portrayed himself from growing up in this nation, experiencing the hardships, being raised without a father. And he was able to connect with a lot of different states within the nation. And the same with Trump being a household name, starting his career with his real estate to his TV show. He was able to connect with the people by saying he is familiar. He is, a household name. But also, when he spoke very directly to what he's going to do in very simple terms. He said, we're going to do this. We're going to move China here. We're going to I'm trying to quote something that he actually said. We're going to put manufacturing companies that China owns in Mexico, and we're going to make Mexico pay for it. And any cars or anything that comes out of that, I'm going to heavily tax. He did it very simply. He broke it down, and everyone was cheering. Now, Kamala does not speak that way, and it would be inauthentic for her to even address it that way. But if she was able to connect with the nation through authenticity, I feel she would get a lot more votes than she did. But unfortunately, like you said, when you are so deep and knowing of the political, you know, know-how, then you become condescending. And I don't think it was intentional, but you speak in a certain way that can only reach a certain audience. And it missed the mark. It really missed the mark. And yeah, that's what I had to say.
Sage.
Yeah, I agree with what Nadia was saying because the vibe I felt that was coming from Trump and the Republican Party was much more this vibe of like, I get you, and it resonated with a lot more people. Like, I get you, I understand what your life is like, and here's what we're gonna do to improve it. whether or not that actually pans out the way that they say is not relevant until it comes to pass, because a lot of the proposals seemed kind of wonky, but we're gonna see. I also felt that too, that Kamala Harris, she did her best. She did her best to also really be authentic and connect with people and be more, um, yeah, try to be more like I get you, but I feel like the energy of it wasn't there for some reason. I don't know what it was, and I think part of it was the fear of of Trump coming back, because the whole Democratic Party was plagued by that. And you don't want to run a campaign that's based on fear of the other side. That's not strong, that's weak. And that's why they clung to Biden, and they propped him up, and they tried to even conceal his true state mentally and physically. And then they switched to Kamala Harris. They didn't allow the new nominee to be democratically elected by the people, which could have damaged trust a lot. But we'll see when they do studies on it. And yeah, that wasn't a good move. And I watched this video by Marianne Williamson. She tried to run for the Democratic nomination, but she said she kind of got shut out by the media and the party. She said that the party has become very like detached from the people, and that they were like, listen, we're really going to heavily push for Biden again because he's the only person who's beat Trump. They literally said that line a lot in the media when they have a sample size of two, Hillary Clinton and Biden. And so they're like, well, therefore Biden was the best nominee. And they kind of pushed that, and the whole media did. Kind of similar to, I don't want to equate these, but the media also really, really, really disliked and pushed hard against Bernie Sanders when he was running for the nomination, because the Democratic Party, once again, they were like, no, he could never win. And it's just like, there's such a thing as Sanders Trump voters who are just anti-establishment. So as soon as Bernie dropped out, they were like, who's the other anti-establishment guy? Trump. And people are like, how can you do that? And it's like anti-establishment. That's all it is, because like you guys were saying, the Democratic Party has been very disconnected from people. And this is, Williamson mentioned, like Washington and John Adams warned, if political parties get too much power in this country, it's going to cause problems. And I think that's part of what we're seeing with that. And that's a good lesson. And it needs to be driven by the people, and the party elites need to come off their high horse and just calm down. And that's kind of, Trump did the same thing to the Republican Party. He was like, you all answer to me now, for better or for worse. And so he's like, I'm breaking the party establishment, and people were like, cool,
Yeah. That's why people want Trump, not
Yeah.
a Republican, they want Trump. And I think the Democrats didn't get to do that either. They should have probably through a democratic election, even though it was risky. But again, like they're not about risk at this time. On the meter of safe and risk, they're not about risk, even though like it's weird because they're liberal, and um that's what people reproach them, truly. Everything that they did is seen for people as something that of the establishment, something very old, very rusty, something that doesn't move very much. And that's why Trump has such a success, because he's seen as, I'm going to make this thing move. I'm an outsider, and I'm going to make this thing move. I think people want that, and that's okay if they want that. But they don't want that just for people being rudely outrageous. Um, I think I want that from someone who wants to play the game of life with them, someone who wants to actually interact with people, and someone who wants to sell his presidency, to be honest. Like, Kamala Harris, maybe Harris didn't want to go into her personal life because her personal life as a woman and a woman of various minority background was going to be questioned and was questioned anyway. But I think at one point, when you've been called many names by your opponent, you need to respond. And you don't need to respond by responding directly to them, but you need to respond by saying, I just like this is my life. Like this is what I had, it's where I grew up. It's what I did as studies. And it seems why I believe into things. Michelle Obama does this. Barack Obama does this, obviously. Um, it is not like it is not a crime to use your unfair advantage, and it is not a crime to sell to people because they're going to vote on emotions and trying to win the noble way. There's no noble way to win in this. Like, I think that's what the arrogance came from. It's like Democrats didn't allow the representative to really be themselves, to really say like we're going to actually make something move instead of just protecting our rights. And protecting our rights doesn't mean that they just wanted to protect their power, but it was seen like that by other people. And that's why I say like people they may not be book smarts in terms of politics all the time, but they're not dumb. And I think it's a very, very important component for a lot of countries to realize. Um, but we're far from it because, again, I'm telling you, people that grew up in the cultural elite, they don't realize how different they are from the people, and they don't know how to talk to the people. That's the problem with Emmanuel Macron right now. It's not that he's a bad person, it's that he doesn't know how to talk to the people. He was a student who grew up with like 2,000 euros a month, where some students have 200 euros a month at the same time as him. So he was poor in his standards, but he was never in difficulty. And he said it publicly that, yeah, I was a student. I did have 1,000 euros a month too. And people were mocking him. And it was like, really, come down and talk to the people in the streets. And I think what the far right movements do very well is coming and talking to the people. I mean, not in the streets, but they talk to them by selling to them, and they sell really well. They storytell really well, and I think it's time to learn your lesson. If you don't want to treat this as business and to fight for a business, somebody else will, and that's unjust, that's unfair, it's illogical, but we have to do it.
So on a level, I think that you've touched on something quite important, and I think we need to add to it that the more personal your story becomes, the more you're actually perceived as personable. You're perceived as a human being. You're perceived as somebody that we can connect with. I want to know that the person who is asking for my vote understands who the person is that's actually voting for them. And again, I agree with you that it is a sales job, and I almost feel like, I didn't watch many, but just listening to Kamala Harris speak, I just felt a very almost judicial way of speaking to people that's in line with her professional background. But she's not, she doesn't necessarily strike me as somebody that has fuzz around the edge, and you want some fuzz. The other thing that we as people of color tend to want to do is not succeed on the basis of our race or our minority or any of those other things, because we want to believe and feel that we got the job based on merit. And we need to learn that those things are not mutually exclusive. And in all honesty, those things might actually just be the thing that makes us better at our jobs. So let people into that space a bit more.
Yeah, I want to go back to what you said, Granville, previously, and go a little bit deeper when you mentioned that people go into a cycle of comfort and they are repeating their patterns. And if you see from when Obama was elected, we kind of were in this like elated state, our first Black president. But as the years went on, and not to diminish anything that Obama has done, he has done great achievements. But we've seen that the Democratic Party did not pull their weight as the Republican Party does. And so I feel that people were kind of like, okay, we have a president that's doing great things, but why is there so much stagnancy when it comes to the Democratic Party? And I feel right after that, there was an like emergence of anger that more things could not have been done, more things could not have been structured and ordered so that the preceding president could unfold it even more. Because of that, people wanted to test and try for Trump. They wanted to see what the Republican Party was about and see how this structure, how this power and stance that Trump has, how will it convert to benefit our country? So I wouldn't look at it in like a vile way, but people want to continue the good and people want to continue the change and have foundational change, grounding change. And so that pattern again, we went back to Biden because we wanted that Obama back. But Obama never came back and Biden was very much absent. So you can only imagine why someone would want to vote, aside from Democratic or Republican, why they would want to vote in the interest of their country. And if you are feeling for that power and aching for someone to stand up for that change, because you need that change. Our country needs that change. The economy here is shit. Unless you're like a small business owner or like a business owner and can, play the game, there's a lot of people here that are living in unfair wages. Even if their wages increase, we have a lifestyle here that is so expensive. Yeah, I want to increase my wages, but don't increase my rent and my living costs two times. That doesn't make a difference here. And so seeing that, seeing how our quality of life is diminishing, someone can only, do the best they can so that they have a fighting chance.
I think there's a problem here with basically people, even in 2016, thought that people that elected Trump or were voting against minorities, against gay people, against Mexicans. And it was never truly that. Otherwise, like Cubans in Florida wouldn't be voting. It doesn't make sense. We're voting for something already. We're voting to make America great again, and it was truly that. And I think when you are not used or refuse to have open discussion with anyone, which is again one of the things that is the downfall of many left side parties in the world, you you basically miss what people actually want. It's your electorate. You're not against your electorate. You have to work with them. They're not persona non grata. Avoid at all costs just because we voted for something. Are not lost. And if you're not truly speaking to them, like you're going to use them to your opponent. And I think Democrats and people on the left side of the political spectrum all over the world really miss that even though there is racism, and yes, there are racists in the electorate and homophobic people and transphobic people, a lot of people vote for something, not against these minorities.
So I just want to touch on something that Sage shared that I think is very important that we probably just skimmed over a little bit too much, is that the element of trust. Because I feel like that, well, that's necessarily the core, the crux of it all, that government is a relationship of trust. And if by their lack of action, by their lack of organization, a party starts to seem to be less able to deliver, it does erode trust. And then you have this thing of somebody starting to not want to mention their opponent in their speeches and stuff like that. And it sounds like playing into fear. And the one thing you don't want in a leader is fearfulness. You want them to be able to, as forthrightly as possible, as humanely as possible, as diplomatically as possible, address the challenges. And avoiding allowing people into seeing you defending yourself in terms of claims lobbied against you, you avoiding the name of your opponent, your party not necessarily being forthcoming with information around the health of the standing candidate. It's all a recipe for disaster because it progressively erodes trust. And if you are going to ask for a vote, then you have to prove yourself trustworthy.
Yeah, and you can't take it for granted, And Kamala Harris did say this. Like, she was like, I'm not gonna take for granted that I'm gonna get like Black men's votes, for example. Like, she said that recently. But I still feel like overall the Democratic Party was taking that stuff for granted. And when they say be the president for all people, they have to really mean it. And I feel like it's a deep healing for us as minorities to realize that we're not minorities. Like, I never go about my life and think I'm a minority. A minority is a statistical grouping of people, and I am a person just like you. I'm an individual. And while my story might sound different from the vast majority of people, so does everybody's. And that's the appeal of the Trump and the Republican Party, is that they're treating everyone more so as individuals. There is the us versus them type of shit, and that's terrible. But the Democrats do that too. And you don't want to be like, these are my clients, like these groups are my people in my pocket. You don't want to be like that, because they're not. We're just human beings. And that's such a refreshing way. I realized that when you were speaking, Yurian. I realized that, and I was like, that's the key. It's like, don't see us as special or different or like minorities. Like, we're just people. And in our very individual stories, there's universality, And I love that. And I think it's something that we're healing, And a lot of people may not have woken up to that, but a lot of people have. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, well, it's very well articulated and like that. So, anything else to kind of close, uh, kind of wind down this discussion?
Yeah, so I do wanna also just share a very alternative perspective because I also have the sense that what Nadia shared around the checks and balances kind of feels to me a bit like America playing this little karmic game saying, let him go in there and let him calm the hell down and let him get out so that we can move on. Because, it's one of those things where he never really slowed down. He kind of constantly challenged and battled and battled and battled. And you kind of, at some point, you kind of need the noise to stop so that the real work starts. So sometimes that karmic lesson here is allow it because one, you don't fully know the future, only time will tell. And two, given that he's realized that America's not going to let him get away with crap, he might just be a little bit more circumspect about what he actually chooses to do going forward.
Yeah, because he does want to win at all costs. So there's a point at which you start to bend. He used to be a Democrat. He used to be a registered Democrat. He's on the record saying the economy does better under Democrats. He said that in the past, and then he switched to the Republican. That's called pragmatism. That's called wanting to win at all costs. I mean, not at all costs, but like he's willing to be like, how can I win here? Let's do that. Insane because maybe because in New York City, maybe it wasn't as popular to be a Republican or something. I don't know. But
Maybe.
in the past, like he probably didn't want to be a persona non grata in New York when he was just starting his real estate ventures. So
Yeah.
who knows? I don't know what the deal
He's
is.
certainly a strategist. You can't fault him there. We may not always agree with the strategies, but he's certainly a strategist.
Yeah, I think back in 2016, I don't know if you remember, but a lot of people would be disgusting by him because he brought the attitude of being a businessman into this. And I think it's a very humbling lesson to realize that bringing the energy of a businessman into a job is not like necessarily something to be frowned upon. The ideas, yes, maybe. Um, the way of doing things, maybe, possibly. But then being a businessman, I think it was kind of the same with Emmanuel Macron. It was like he's bringing the energy of a banker into politics. But like it also maybe gives people that energy of like get a move on that they so crave. Um, I'm gonna move on for our economy, our stability, but still gonna move on. It's kind of a weird dichotomy, if I would say. I don't know how to explain it in simpler terms, but yeah, there's a little bit of that too. So yeah, I think the lesson that we've learned tonight is that personality does a big thing. Um, Personal story and how you behave, how you have relationships. We know now that everything is relationships and very important. And I think it's time for politicians that have been here a long time or in parties that have been here a long time to really get off your high horse and start communicating with people and start actually answering them instead of ignoring them and thinking you know better. Because that gives elections like that. They're divisive. Yeah, so we'll have to see and check in, I guess, with the health of the society overall. See if that hasn't caused like a big chasm between people, polarize them even more. and I guess discuss and heal as we go during the next 4 years. So, any last words?
So I do want to play devil's advocate a little bit,
Okay.
specifically on the energy of a business person as the president, because we've also seen it in countries where, specifically South Africa, we have a president that was very successful business wise, but has not necessarily been as successful presidentially. So there's definitely room for that level of organizational skill, but there's also room for a balanced range of skills that serves the purpose of the role. So yeah, I just think that this is all this like the entire thing feels to me like that whole cry for stability is literally just pointing to where the imbalances still need to be resolved so that we can actually have a reasonable system of government and a reasonable partnership with our government.
Yeah, Sage. No. All right. Thank you so much for the discussion. Very insightful, very rich. And thank you to anyone who's been watching us tonight and has commented. We read your comments, even though we don't necessarily answer them directly. And I think they really helped a lot with the discussion. And thank you to everyone who's watching us from YouTube. If you have anything that you'd like to propose for the next few weeks of discussion, please comment it. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can do more of those. See you soon.